Ich möchte keine Fettflecken auf meiner Decke.
Oh, ich mag keine Fettflecken auf meiner Decke.
Dieser Gentleman sagt, ich sei hier nicht erwünscht.
Tut mir leid, Sir.
Wie kann er denen allen lächelnd die Hand schütteln?
Weil man Herz braucht, um die Einstellung der Menschen zu ändern.
Viggo, you hesitated a little saying yes to playing Italian-American Tony Lip. Why was that?
Well, there's always a certain amount of fear, you know, because you're always taking on someone else's point of view. But in some cases, depending on what you are, physically, what your background is, some roles can be really far removed from what you are and how you instinctively behave and sound. And that was the case with Tony Vallelonga. I was just, you know, I was more nervous than usual. And as I said to Pete, it's a fantastic script, but you should really probably look for an Italian-American actor. You know, it's going to just shorten your, I mean, you're already taking a chance, making a drama, doing something very different. You should find a guy who's more like the character, I suppose. And he said, no, he insisted. He said, you're the guy I want, you're the only guy I want. So it was just a question of having faith in his judgment. Obviously, he doesn't want to miscast his movie. And faith in my ability to figure it out somehow. You know, as I was trying to decide, I did remember a couple of other instances, especially David Cronenberg with A Dangerous Method. Same thing happened. You know, he very good script, but he wanted me to play Sigmund Freud when he was in his 40s, and I said, you should get another guy. I'm not right for that at all. But he convinced me, and you know, and I thought about it with David Cronenberg, and I said, well, you know, I've done 2 movies with him. He didn't steer me wrong, and he obviously does not want to miscast his movie. So I thought about that situation, and I'm really glad I played that part. I had a good time, and remember I was nominated for a Globe for that part, so that was obviously a good decision. But with Pete Farrelly, you know, in the end, it was the same thing. I thought about the situation with David, and I said, well, Pete, you know, he's going out on a limb, and he's thought about this, so I should trust him, and I'm glad I did.
And it's like a dance between you and Mahershala Ali. Can you talk about the kind of brotherhood that you two have developed in the film, but also maybe developed in real life?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, I had met him like a year or so before, and we'd had a really nice conversation, kind of in-depth conversation about family, not just acting, but lots of stuff, and I got to know him a little bit. And when Pete told me that that's the guy he was trying to get to play Doc Shirley, I said to him, well, I hope you get him. He would make our work a lot easier because he's a brilliant actor. But he's also a really nice guy. You'll see when you meet him. He's friendly, he's got a very open mind, extremely intelligent person. And fortunately, he said, yeah. You know, once he signed up, I was less nervous because I thought, wow, you know, because it's not all on you when you have a two-hander, or I mean, it's an ensemble movie, but a lot of it takes place in the car, and it's these 2 people talking and not getting along very well. And you know, it takes 2. You want to have a really great partner. And dancing, as you said, that's a good word for it, because it was like a dance partner. You know, there's a certain rhythm you have to get into. You have to listen. You have to. Sometimes one person's driving the scene. Sometimes the other one is, and it's really important how you react to what the other person's doing. To really listen. I mean, it always is in acting, but in scenes like we had, it's especially important. And if that hadn't been happening, could have been dull. It could have just not worked. You know, I mean, 2 guys in a car. It could be a recipe for a disaster if you don't cast it right and you don't work together well. But he was great. He was great from the start to finish, and I'm really proud of the movie and especially of our relationship. I think you can feel on screen how much we cared about each other and cared for each other. You know, like I always felt he was on my side. He was trying to make me better. And I was certainly trying to help him be comfortable and do whatever he needed to do. And you can tell. I think you can tell on screen when people are working in that way.
And lastly, Viggo, the film is very entertaining, but it also seems to have a very significant message. What was the most important message for you of this film?
I mean, to be honest, I don't think it's the classic message movie. You know, it's not a movie that preaches. It's certainly not a movie that divides. It's the opposite. I mean, it's not made for one part of the population. It's a movie that anybody could go to. I think a movie that most people will go to because they'll have heard, oh, it's really fun, it's a great road trip movie, it's hilarious at times, so forth. And I think they'll come out with much more than that. It's much more profound than that. It's thought-provoking. It's set at a historical remove in 1962, and the good thing about that is there's not really much to argue about. That's the way it was back then. Those are the laws that were on the books. That's the kind of language people used, and there was a certain out front racial prejudice that was acceptable in society at that time that isn't now. That's not to say that everything's fine now. It obviously is not, if you pay any attention to the news. It's just that discrimination, prejudice, those things have kind of gone underground in terms of language. You know, we don't use the N-word so much anymore, fortunately, and there are not those awful laws on the books anymore, but you know, people are discriminated against. There is voter suppression. There is unequal treatment, in some cases by the police, towards certain sectors of the population. Gerrymandering and voting districts, you know, today's voting day, and there are a lot of things that are not right, that are essentially racist in their intent. But that's always going to be the case, you know. As I was saying to you earlier, I think we always have to work on these things, you know. Each generation, each new group of little children are going to instinctively play together without thinking about the color of other kids' skin, or whether they have deformities, or how they sound. They don't care. They're just playing. They learn to differentiate and to set themselves apart from others. They learn that from their parents, from their schools, from their neighborhoods, from society. And then hopefully people have a chance, in part thanks to stories like Green Book and other life lessons maybe, to relearn. I mean, to unlearn these negative things they've learned, these things about people being different and hence you should stay away from them or fear them. They can relearn to play again, like to just, you know, in the way that Mahershala and I get along. That's possible, not just the characters, but he and I as actors, you know. I'm friends with him, and it doesn't matter to me where he's from or what he looks like, and I don't think it matters to him what I look like or where I'm from. We just did the work together, and we had a great time, and you know, I've met his family, he's met my son. You know, I remember when we first met, he was telling me, yeah, in a day or two we're gonna have our baby, you know, and then on the set, his wife came and I have pictures where I'm holding his baby, and you know, those kinds of things are normal. They should be normal. And I think stories like this remind you of that. But I don't think people should get frustrated and think that, well, someday we'll solve it all and then it'll be done. Or get frustrated because it's not happening. It's not all done. It's not all solved. It's never going to be solved. Like I say, every generation, new lessons, new obstacles. Discrimination uses different words, different ways. Its shape changes, you know, and you have to recognize it. First and foremost in yourself. You know, be honest with yourself before you start criticizing everyone else, you know. So that's one of the many things that this story does without ever telling you to do so. You know, it just invites you to think about things like this, I think.
Thank you, Viggo.